back to Voices in Mystery. I'm Nancy Carlson, your host. Our next guest is Marion Moore Hill, who comes from Oklahoma, or right now she does, which is near the Texas border, and she has written a couple of series that I want you to hear about. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Let's start with your earlier series, and that's The Deadly, or is that the latest series?
The first series, the one I began with, is Bookmarked for Murder.
Okay, let's talk about that.
This is about a librarian. And I got the idea for her character by thinking about the stereotypical librarian and the fact that the librarians I know are not like that stereotype.
That stereotype being stuffy and...
Kind of the enforcer, the rigid-looking soul with, you know, hair back in a bun, no nonsense glasses and so forth. Yeah, Marion the librarian, which I'm not, but people call me that sometimes. But I wanted to write about a librarian that was fun. Most of them I know are. And she's kind of a funny, nosy, strong person, but she's a librarian.
That's terrific. And the first book was?
Bookmarked for Murder.
Bookmarked for Murder, that works. And the second one is Death Books a Return.
Right. I'm using the word book in some way in each of the titles in this series.
And can you set up the most recent one so we know a little bit about what's going to happen?
Yes, in this story, my character, the librarian, is trying to write a history of her small town. And she runs across an old unsolved murder from nearly 50 years ago. And this is a murder that has racist overtones. At that time, her town was an all-white town, which a lot of towns were, you know, years ago. And there was an all-black town nearby. And this young man was a black teenager who was killed in the town of Wyndham. So one of the mysteries is why he was even in town after sundown. And, of course, she solves it.
Oh, that's great. And do you have new books in mind for that series?
Yes, I have several planned. The next one will have to do with a literacy student. My character will become a literacy teacher. You know, a lot of libraries work with literacy programs, and I've been a literacy tutor for 20 years, and so I kind of know that background.
You've taught as well?
Yes, I taught in college. I was a journalism major, and I taught journalism and English at a small Baptist college in Tennessee, and then I taught English at a small state college in Oklahoma.
Now let's look at your other series, the Deadly Path series, and tell us what that means. And do you use the word deadly in all of those words?
I do, yeah. The first one is called Deadly Will, and in this, there is a legacy based on Ben Franklin's will, which was a very unusual will, and I never heard about it while I was taking history classes in school. But I got to researching it, and he set aside some money to earn interest for 200 years after his death.
Really?
And at the end of that time, which was 1990, Philadelphia and Boston each got millions of dollars from all the interest that had accrued over the years. I thought that was a fascinating idea, and I wanted to use it somehow in a mystery. And I came up with the idea of a fictitious legacy based on Ben Franklin's, a fictitious acquaintance of his who copies the idea. But instead of leaving his money to cities, this man leaves it for his own descendants who will be alive 2 centuries later to split it. There could be thousands of them by that time, but they're not, fortunately. He has them get together in his mansion in Philadelphia, and then some die under mysterious circumstances.
That sounds wonderful.
It's a fun series to research.
And Millie's a history buff. Your protagonist is an amateur sleuth.
She is, and she actually lives in Texas, North Texas, and but she's a big history buff, and she is one of the heirs of this man in Deadly Will. And she's barely getting by at the time she gets this letter from out of the blue. And, you know, there's the prospect of riches, which excites her, but also the fact that her ancestor knew Ben Franklin.
Yeah.
She's excited about that.
So you'll choose a different historical theme for all the Millie series?
Yes, I'm writing a book right now which will come out in November of 2009, which is based on Thomas Jefferson as an architect. Most of it is set at Poplar Forest near Lynchburg, Virginia, which a lot of people don't know about. It was his second home, a retreat from all the people who came to visit him at Monticello. And in the story, Deadly Design is the name of that book, and in it there's an old house which may turn out to have been designed by Thomas Jefferson. That's one of the mysteries of that book.
And you have others planned?
Yes. I'll do one on the Adamses next called Deadly Kin, Samuel and John and Abigail Adams. And then I'll do one on Washington, and then we'll see from there.
Oh, I think that's a terrific series, and I wish you a lot of luck on that one.
Thank you. I'm really enjoying it.
You said your book is coming out in November '09. Now, is this something the publisher determines, and does he base it on Christmas sales, or what do publishers, how do they decide when your book is coming out?
That's a very good question. My first book with this particular publisher, which was Deadly Will, came out in April of that year. Apparently there are certain months that publishers consider best to publish. She tries to publish at a time when her titles are not competing with a lot of titles from big publishers, because it's a very small publishing company. And so I've had one book come out in April, and then this book came out in September of this year, and then the next book will come out in November, so we'll see which is the best time to bring a book out.
Do they tell you when the book's going to come out before you have even finished it?
Oh, yes.
So you're under the gun to get it done?
To some extent, but my publisher's pretty flexible. For instance, the sequel to this one was originally scheduled for September of '09, and I was kind of running into some problems and didn't think I could get it done. You know, I have to have the manuscript to her about a year before the actual publication date.
Oh.
And so my deadline now is November of this year. But if I don't get it done, she said, we'll just move it to spring of next year.
Sounds like a wonderful publisher.
Yeah, she's great to work with because, for one thing, she's an excellent editor. And I do need editing. Sometimes I get too close to a book and, you know, can't see things that need to be changed. But she has a really good eye, and she's made each of my books better.
Are they continuity problems, like you forgot that somebody's cousin, or?
No, not that sort of thing. With this one, there was a problem in the romantic aspect of the book. She felt I had made it, the romance developed too quickly, too suddenly, and so she's an old romance writer herself, and she gave me some clues as to, you know, in this scene she should notice something about the hero and that type of thing.
Oh, so there is almost a formula in how a romance develops, would you say?
Not exactly a formula, but it needed to develop gradually.
I see.
And she helped me a lot with that.
Well, I know you're busy writing other books and planning other books, but I'm really hoping that Death Books A Return, which just came out.
It just came out last month.
Will be a huge success, and I thank you so much. Marion Moorhill has been with us today on Voices in Mystery, and she has brought 3 books with her today: Deadly Will, the friend Franklin, Death Books A Return, the new one, and the first of that series, Bookmark for Murder. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you. I've enjoyed it.